Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Shem Yahushua Bashem Kakadash. I wanted to do a quick sit down going into this particular subject. As we can see, even as close as we are to the finish line, all right, we have individuals, all right, which, Genesis is the hot topic right now. We have individuals that are still teaching, things that are contrary to, what is written. All right. So I'll go ahead and entitle this lesson, Salvation was not preached, or was preached, specifically to Israelite foreigners and not to actual heathen. All right. So, Lord's willing, this lesson is edifying. We're going to go through some basic scriptures. All right. Because really, this thing is playing upon tables. It's not complicated. It's not complicated. It's not rocket science. It's really very simple. But, as we get closer and closer to the straight gate, we're going to continue to have individuals that fold under the pressure. All right. And that basically forsake everything that they were taught. All right. And that's why the scripture is going to, certain individuals that, didn't bow the knee to Baal. All right. Those particular individuals are the men of the Lord, the true prophets. OK, but not everybody's a true prophet, as the Lord warned us. All right. We have a lot of hirelings out here. OK, so this isn't going to be long. I just needed to get a couple scriptures real quick, and I'm going to read a little bit of this commentary because, even these, theologians, right? These, these guys that may have got, educated through cemetery, right? Even they don't know what the hell they're talking about. I remember, I forget what guy I was watching. He has a good page because he goes into a lot of history. He goes into a lot of Roman history. I want to say his name is Bruce. I want to say Bruce Gore, maybe. I think he's a history professor, but he has a lot of good videos on the, the Greeks, the Romans, things of that nature. But even with all that knowledge, okay, they still don't understand the scriptures, bro. All right. They still don't understand the scriptures, but the powers to be, the ones really calling the shots, the ones really, moving things around. All right. As far as, laws and legislation in the direction that the world is going, they know we're the Israelites. All right. That's not a debate. Okay. So let's start off with this. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to get this. Let's go straight to what the Lord said. All right, let's go straight to what the Lord said. Let's go to Matthew chapter 10. All right, this is Matthew 10 and 5. It says, these 12 Yahushua sent forth and commanded them, saying, go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of Samaritans enter ye not. Okay. But go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. All right. Now, why did the Lord say that? Why did the Lord say that? Okay. And let's get a little commentary on this. Let's see if anybody's actually gonna go into it properly. Let's go to Matthew Henry real quick. See what his commentary has to say. This is Matthew chapter 10. Let's see. Okay. So let's read what he says. It says, to them, Christ appropriated his own ministry, for he was a minister of the circumcision, Romans 15:8. And therefore, to them, the apostles, who were but his attendants and agents, must be confined. The first offer of salvation must be made to the Jews, Acts 3:26. Note, Christ had particular and very tender concern for the house of Israel. They were beloved for the Father's sake. He looked with compassion upon them as lost sheep, whom he, as a shepherd, was to gather out the bypass of sin. All right, now let's skip down. Okay, because when the Lord said lost sheep, that's a specific reference. All right, that's a specific reference to a specific group of people. All right, let's get this. This is Jeremiah 50:6. It says, my people have been lost sheep. Okay, so the subject is who? My people. Right, the Lord's possession, the Lord's inheritance. All right, it says, my people have been a lost sheep. Okay, their shepherds have caused them to go astray. Okay, so the Lord's people are likened unto sheep when you read all throughout the scriptures. Now let's get another one. Let's go here. Right, because in the New Testament, what were they reading from? What did they have access to? All right, they had access to the prophets, okay, to the law, and to the prophets, the Old Testament, so to speak. Okay, so a lot of this verbiage, a lot of this lingo, so to speak, that the Lord was using, he was using intentionally. He was speaking in a way that they would understand. All right, so let's get this. This is Ezekiel chapter 34. All right. And we will let's start at verse 8. I'll start at verse 6. It says, my sheep wandered through all the mountains and upon every high hill. Yea, my flock was scattered upon all the face of the earth, and none did search or seek after them. All right. And when you read about mountains in the scriptures, mountains represent governments, nations. All right. And that links up with the prophecies that, the nation will be scattered unto every nation under heaven. All right. So you have Israelites everywhere looking like all different, types of people. This isn't a black thing. All right. This isn't a black thing. Okay. But let's jump down. Let's jump down to verse 11. It says the restoration. Ezekiel 34:11. It says, for thus saith the Lord, behold, I, even I, will both search my sheep and seek them out. All right. And he did that in the form of preaching the word. All right. Pushing the gospel. All right. And that's happening these times in the form of the internet. All right. The Lord putting the spirit and putting the words upon, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, and then giving them the internet. Okay. But this is verse 12. It says, as a shepherd seeketh out his flock in the day that he is among his sheep that are scattered. Okay. So this is specifically referring to the Lord's people. Okay. All right. And that's what when you read the first two verses, okay, that it tells you that. All right. But it says, Ezekiel 34:12, it says, as a shepherd seeketh out his flock in the day that he is among his sheep that are scattered, so will I seek out my sheep and will deliver them out of all the places where they have been scattered in the cloudy and dark day. Going into the deliverance. All right. The Lord has been seeking us out in the form of pushing his word, but that's ultimately going to lead to actual deliverance. Okay. Actual deliverance. And for that, I want to get this real quick in Isaiah 11. All right, I want to read a little bit of this commentary. Let me see. This commentary that I'm reading, it's the 1-volume Bible commentary by J.R. Dumelow. So let me pull this up on the screen. This is Isaiah 11. All right. And again, we just read in Ezekiel, it talks about the restoration. Okay. We go to Isaiah. It says what? It says the restored remnant. Okay. What does it mean to restore something? All right. What does that mean? Let's look that up. It says restore, to bring back a previous right. All right. So how can you go back to something that you were never a part of? All right. It says reinstate, to put back, to bring back, return, repair, rehabilitate, rebuild. Okay. So that word right there lets you know, all right, who the Lord is, what's going on, who the Lord is dealing with, man. All right. Now this is Isaiah chapter 11. Let's get this. This is Isaiah 11. And I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to read some of this commentary. It says, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people. All right. And the reason why he worded it like that is because he's referring to the Exodus. All right. The deliverance of our people out of Egypt, in which when you read that account, all right, the Lord did not deliver everybody out of Egypt. The Lord didn't deliver Egyptians. Okay. The Lord specifically delivered his people. Okay. So when Isaiah is writing this, he's connecting that deliverance with this deliverance that is about to take place now. Okay. So let's read this, because this is one of my go-tos right here, because it tells you who the Gentiles are when you read this. All right. As a matter of fact, let me start up. Right. Let me start up. Because when you had the actual scrolls, there wasn't chapters and verses, right? There wasn't these subheaders. It was just a continuous document. Okay. So when you read verse 10 and it mentions, all right, and it mentions the Gentiles in verse 10, later in verse 11 and verse 12, it defines who those Gentiles are. All right. And we'll prove that too by linking that to the New Testament. We'll prove that. All right. So this is Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 10. It says, and in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. All right. And the root of Jesse is referring to, David's father, David's lineage. All right. In which Yahushua was a part of. All right. Being a son of David. That's why his lineage is outlined when you read Matthew, the first chapter. All right. But this is verse 10. It says, and in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people, and to it the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. It says, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria and Egypt and from Pathros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. It says, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations and shall assemble the outcast of Israel. Right. So that's the definition. Okay. That's the Gentiles who he's referring to, the outcast of Israel. Right. It says, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Right. So that's the key right there. All right. Now let's jump to the New Testament and link this up, because the apostles understood this. All right. The apostles understood this. All right. And they did what Yahweh commanded them to do. The same with the Apostle Paul. All right. This is 1 Peter 1:1. All right. I'm going to get 1 Peter 1:1, and I'm going to get James 1:1. All right. It says, Peter, an apostle of Yahweh HaMashiach, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. Right. So the strangers scattered. Right. Those strangers that are scattered is talking about those same individuals that we just read about in Isaiah 11. Okay. Scattered Israelites. All right. Now let's get James 1:1. All right. It says James is even more specific. All right. When you get it, he's even more specific. All right. And why is this the first? You got to ask yourself, why is this the first thing stated? All right. Why? You know, anytime you write a letter, it says you write to, right? You write to so and so, right? You identify who the letter is addressed to. Okay. If the letter was for everybody, there would be no need for this identifier. Okay. This is James 1:1. It says, James, a servant of the Most High and of the Lord Yahweh HaMashiach. It says, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. So there it is. All right. There it is. And there's nothing confusing about that. There's nothing really mysterious about that. What makes it a mystery, because the scriptures do talk about the mystery of the Gentiles, what makes it a mystery is that you're going to have Israelites that don't look like Israelites. You're going to have Israelites that look like actual heathen, that actually look like the so-called white man, that actually look like Asian people, that actually look like Indian people, African people. You're going to have Israelites everywhere. All right. This thing isn't about looking like a damn action figure, a damn, you know what I mean? All right. This is Jeremiah 12:9. It says, mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. All right. Meaning what? That Israel in the latter days is going to come in various shades and complexions. You know, that's what it means. It says, mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. The birds round about are against her. Come ye, assemble, all the beasts of the field, come to devour. Okay. So that's playing upon tables, man. That's playing upon tables. All right. So with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, Bashem Makakodash. Shalom.